Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today we are going to talk about the rest of the bone cells. In the last lecture we talked about osteoid, which is the unmineralized matrix of the bone, the first formed unmineralized matrix of the bone, the way it is mineralized by the matrix vesicles, where the matrix vesicles are coming from. We talked about that. We talked about the composition of matrix vesicles and how they help in the initiation of mineralization. Then we talked about the very important cells of the bone, including the osteoblasts, the osteocytes, the osteoclasts. We talked about the osteoblasts in detail. In today's lecture, we're going to talk about the rest of the bone cells, including the osteocytes and the osteoclasts. As I said in the last lecture, osteoblasts basically are the bone forming cells, and osteocytes are basically derived from osteoblasts, and as the osteoblasts form the bone, some of them get entrapped within the matrix that they secrete, whether mineralized or unmineralized. Once entrapped, these osteoblasts are then called the osteocytes. Naturally, the more rapid the formation of the bone, obviously the more osteocytes would be present in that bone per unit volume. Osteocytes, however, are more numerous in the embryonic or woven bone and the repair bone, whereas the adult lamellar bone has, because it forms regularly and less rapidly, it has less amount of osteocytes within it. Within the matrix of the bone, these osteocytes, which are derived from osteoblasts, they lie within the spaces between the lamella of the matrix, and these spaces are called the lacunae. One osteocyte basically resides in one lacuna. These lacunae are the lacunae basically are the spaces that are actually occupied by the cell body of the osteocytes. So if you see here, this space, as it is occupied by the body of the osteoblast, is the lacuna. So these are your lacunae. These lacunae have obviously extensions to accommodate the processes of the osteocyte, which are called the osteocytic processes, and these extensions of lacunae are called the canalicles. So this here how one osteocyte looks like, or the lacunae looks like. So this is a space which is called a lacunae, which is occupied by your single osteocyte. One osteocyte occupies one lacunae. Because these osteocytes have numerous cytoplasmic extensions called the osteocytic processes or the cytoplasmic processes, so obviously they require the extensions of the lacunae to accommodate themselves. So these extensions of the lacunae, जिनको मैं highlight कर रही हूँ, these basically are the channels that extend from these lacunae, and they are called the canalicles, within which the osteocytic processes, or the processes of the osteocytes, or the cytoplasmic extensions of the osteocytes reside. So this is an SEM showing the osteocytes embedded within the lacunae in the bone matrix. So this is your bone matrix, and you can see numerous lacunae occupying the osteocytes. This figure here shows how the osteocytes have an extensive cellular process network called the cytoplasmic processes. This is the cell body of your osteocyte, and these are the extensions of the osteocytic cell body called the osteocytic cytoplasmic processes, or the cytoplasmic process of an osteocyte, labeled as CP. ये सारे ये जो आपको ट्री ब्रांच लाइक नज़र आ रहे हैं, ये सारे आपके इसके ऑस्टियोसाइट के प्रोसेसेस हैं. ठीक है. So basically, your osteocyte has a cell body and numerous cytoplasmic extensions called the cytoplasmic processes. The cell body resides within the lacunae, and these processes reside within the canalicles of the lacunae. After these osteocytes, they become embedded within the bone matrix. Obviously, their sizes reduce and they come to occupy the spaces within the matrix which are later called the osteocytic lacunae, because the osteocytes are residing within them, so they are called the osteocytic lacunae. These lacunae have narrow extensions in the form of enclosed channels or canalicles that house the radiating osteocytic processes, जैसे कि मैंने आपको यहाँ पर दिखाया है, यहाँ पर भी. So these cytoplasmic processes have these lacunae, they have canalicles like channels or extensions जिनके अंदर osteocytic processes reside करते हैं. Through these channels, the osteocyte maintains its contact with the adjacent osteocytes within the bone, obviously, and also with the osteoblasts or the bone lining cells present on the surface. तो ये जो osteocytic processes हैं, ये adjacent cells के osteocytic processes एक दूसरे के साथ in contact होते हैं, and they are also connecting the osteocyte to the osteocytic processes, to the osteoblastic processes of the osteoblast on the top surface of the bone, जो bone lining cells की form में वहाँ पे पड़े हुए हैं. So that basically places your osteocyte in a very ideal position to sense the biochemical and the mechanical environments around themselves and respond to them either themselves if the stimulus requires their response, or to transduce signals that affect the response of other cells involved in bone remodeling to maintain the integrity and vitality of the bone, particularly in case of the repair of the bone cracks. So because the osteocytes, they're connected to all of the osteocytes within the bone, and they're connected to the bone lining cells as well. So basically that puts them in a very ideal position to sense the mechanical and biochemical changes within their immediate environment and to respond to that accordingly. अगर उनका response required है तो they respond to that accordingly, or if any other cell response is required, so they transduce signal to that particular cell involved in the bone remodeling to maintain the vitality of the bone. So this figure here shows how the osteoblast cell process and the osteocyte cell process is connected to one another, and they form a gap junction which basically helps in the transfer of information from the osteocytes to the osteoblast and from the osteoblast to the osteocyte. So if you see here, this process is coming from the osteocyte and this process is coming from the osteoblast, and they have a junction or called the gap junction between them, and this junction basically helps them to get the information from the other side. So this is how the osteocytes are present in a very ideal position to sense the changes in their environment. इसकी वजह से जो आपका बोन नेटवर्क है वो बहुत वेल कनेक्टेड है, एंड इफ देयर इज फेलियर इन any part of this interconnecting system, that would result in the hypermineralization of the bone and eventually death of the bone, because obviously interconnecting system fail हो गया, जिस particular part में ये transfer of information नहीं हो रहा, वहाँ पर bone vitality would be endangered. Although as we said that when the osteocytes become entrapped within the bone matrix, their size reduces and most of their protein synthesizing organelles, they reduce or they finish, but they're still able to synthesize some of the protein matrix of the proteins. And it has been proposed that they participate in the local degradation of the bone what is the local degradation of the bone? Every osteocyte, because it is able to produce some of the proteins and it has some of the enzymes that are able to degrade the bone, तो वो अपनी surrounding के अंदर bone degradation, अपनी local surrounding के अंदर bone degradation के अंदर participate करने की उनके अंदर ability होती है. And this process of local degradation of the bone around their surrounding is called the osteocytic osteolysis, which means that this sort of osteolysis, osteo is for bone and lysis is breakdown. So this sort of breakdown of the bone or the degradation of the bone is osteocyte mediated. So that is why it is called the osteocytic osteolysis. So that is how they influence the structure of the matrix around the lacunae, which is called the perilacunar matrix, because the osteocytes have the ability to locally degrade the bone by the process of osteocytic osteolysis. That is why it is believed that they have the ability to influence the structure of the matrix in their surrounding, which is the perilacunar matrix. This figure here shows the older osteocytes embedded deep within the bone, where they sit in their houses called the lacunae. Between the lacunae and the osteocyte membrane, there is a osteocyte plasma membrane. There is another membrane called the lamina lamitans. These osteocytes have numerous processes called the cytoplasmic processes that ramify from cell through the bone in the canalically like structures of the lacunae. Although osteocytes have reduced synthetic machinery, they are not able to synthesize a lot of proteins. However, they can synthesize some proteins. They also have some mechanism for local degradation of bone that is believed to be lysozymes. It is believed that they have some lysozymes जिसकी वजह से वो local bone degradation कर सकते हैं. This figure here clearly shows everything you see in an osteocyte. This basically is your plasma membrane of the osteocyte. There's not a lot of protein synthesizing organelles. However, there are some lysozymes present here within the membrane of within the cytoplasm of the osteocyte. Then we have the lacunae that houses the cell body of your osteocyte. This lacunae has numerous extensions जैसे कि आपको यहाँ पे नज़र आ रही हैं, और canalicles into which the cytoplasmic processes of these are the cytoplasmic processes. ये इसके अंदर इसके देखो cytoplasmic processes extend हो रहे हैं within the canalicles or channels of the lacunae. So the osteoblast derived cells, osteocytes, when the osteoblasts become embedded within the matrix that they are secreting, they become the osteocytes. And the more rapid the process of bone formation, obviously the more number of osteocytes would be present per unit volume in that particular bone matrix. The osteocytes are present within the osteocytic lacunae. The processes of the osteocytes, they occupy the canalicles or the cellular or the extensions of these lacunae. The osteocytes are not able to synthesize a lot of they do not have a lot of protein synthesizing machinery. However, they do have some mechanism for the secretion of certain matrix proteins, and they're also able to synthesize. They also have numerous lysozymes which help them locally degrade their surrounding bone, the process called osteocytic osteolysis. And that is all about the osteocytes. These osteocytes are in an ideal position where they can sense the mechanical and the biochemical environment around them and respond to it accordingly. Next is the bone resorbing cells of the bone. These bone resorbing cells are called the osteoclasts. And unlike the other cells, osteoblasts and osteocytes, these cells are multinucleated. They have more than one nuclei, and they are much larger than the osteoblasts and the osteocytes. And because of their large size, they can be easily identified under the light microscope, and they're often seen in clusters within the bone. Basically, the marker for the osteoclast is the vesicles within its cytoplasm that contain the tartrate resistant acid phosphatase. So basically, the osteoclasts have a lot of cytoplasmic vesicles and vacuoles that contain tartrate resistant acid phosphatase, and this enzyme distinguishes the multinucleated osteoclasts from the multinucleated joint cells. So osteoclasts particularly are quite big giant cells, multinucleated giant cells, as you can see here. They have lots of nuclei, 1, 2, 3, 4. They have multiple nuclei. और ये zoomed figure है इसका. You could see a giant cell with many nuclei. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is an osteoclast. Here in this figure, you could see an osteoclast, a giant cell with many nuclei. So an osteoclast with many nuclei. The osteoclasts are giant cells and they have many nuclei, and within their cytoplasm there are many vacuoles and vesicles that contain an enzyme which is called the tartrate resistant acid phosphatase. That enzyme basically is the marker for the osteoclasts. What do osteoclasts have to do? Obviously, they have to degrade the bone, they have to resorb the bone. So that is why they have such enzymes like acid phosphatases that help them fulfill their function. Osteoclasts के बारे में हम briefly, I think alveolar bone नहीं periodontal ligament में भी बात कर चुके हैं. अभी आगे जो स्लाइड्स आएंगी, they are going to talk about how the osteoclasts look like, how do they attach to the bone surface, and what are their basically major components of an osteoclast. तो ये चीज़ें हम पहले एक दफ़ा go through कर चुके हैं. This figure here shows, the figure A shows an electron micrograph of an osteoclast attached to the bone surface. ये आपकी bone surface है, this is your bone surface, और इसके साथ ये attach हुआ हुआ आपको osteoclast नज़र आ रहा है, और इसके अंदर आपको numerous nuclei नज़र आ रहे हैं, 1, 2, 3. So it has multiple nuclei. The part of the osteoclast that directly contacts the bone surface is ruffled. This is the ruffled border, and the part of the osteoclast that basically attaches, let me change the ink color. The part of the osteoclast that basically attaches to the bone surface is called the sealing zone. So this here is your sealing zone. Okay? This figure B also shows the osteoclast attached to the calcified cartilage. This here is your calcified cartilage, और इसके साथ ये आपके पास numerous nucleus वाला multinucleated cell attach हुआ है. The border which is towards the calcified cartilage surface जो actively resorption करेगा, that would be ruffled, and it is called ruffled border. The part of the osteoclast that attaches or helps in the attachment of the osteoclast to the bone surface or the calcified cartilage surface is called the sealing zone. Between the sealing zone and the calcified cartilage is a membrane called the lamina lamitans. और अगर आपको याद हो तो the cytoplasm of the osteoclast right inside this ruffled border is called Clare zone, because it does not have a lot of it is devoid of any organelles. However, it does have certain vesicles that have enzymes. उनके बारे में हम बात करेंगे आगे जाकर. सो इस फिगर में आपको नज़र आ रहा है कि ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट बेसिकली बोन सरफेस के साथ अटैच करे या कैल्सिफाइड कार्टिलेज के साथ अटैच करे, जो भी रिजॉर्बिंग सरफेस जिसके साथ भी उसने, जिसके अगेंस्ट भी उसने बोन रिजॉर्प्शन करनी है, दैट the osteoclast, which is a multinucleated cell, it attaches to that particular surface through its sealing zone. The sealing zone basically is helping in the attachment of the osteoclast with the bone surface. And the activity or the resorptive activity जिसको आप कहते हैं, that has to occur on the bone, it occurs only along the ruffled border of the osteoclast, जिसको हम कहते हैं resorptive region, और between the sealing zone and the resorbing bone surface there is a electron dense matrix layer called the lamina lamitans. सीलिंग जोन बेसिकली सिर्फ बोन के साथ ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट को अटैच ही नहीं कर रहा होता, ये एक ऐसा एनवायरनमेंट भी क्रिएट कर रहा होता है जिसकी वजह से रफल्ड बॉर्डर और बोन के दरमियान में एक सेक्लूडेड एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट हो जाता है, जिसका बाहर वाले एनवायरनमेंट के साथ कोई ताल्लुक़ नहीं होता। वो बाहर वाले एनवायरनमेंट से उसको सेक्लूड कर देता है, वो एक स्पेशल एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट कर देता है बिटवीन द osteoclast's ruffled surface and the bone surface that has to be resorbed. So osteoclasts basically are large multinucleated cells with abundant mitochondria. Their attachment to the bone surface occurs via the sealing zone, and all of the resorptive activity occurs along the ruffled border of the osteoclast. An electron dense interfacial matrix layer called the lamina lamitans is observed between the sealing zone and the calcified tissue surface. Abundant vesicles are present or are seen in the cytoplasm face the site of the resorption, obviously because they have the enzymes जो resorption के अंदर help करते हैं. The surface of the bone with which the osteoclasts attach, or the surface of the bone which the osteoclasts have to resorb, that surface throws itself into a hollowed out concavity. It produces a hollowed concavity or a hollowed depression which is called the Howship's lacunae, into which the osteoclast fits. तो इस फिगर में आपको बहुत क्लियरली नज़र आ रहा है, this surface of the bone basically the osteoclast has to resorb. This surface has produced these depressions, and these depressions are called the Howship's lacunae, जिनके अंदर आकर osteoclast reside करता है. ठीक है, यहाँ पर भी आपको न्यूमरस हाउशिप्स lacunae नज़र आ रहे हैं जिनके अंदर osteoclast reside कर रहे हैं. ये हो गया, ये हो गया. So numerous lacunae, the osteoclast would always reside in this lacunae. ठीक है, hollowed out एक depressed region बन जाता है resorbing bone surface के ऊपर, जिसके अंदर आके osteoclast reside करता है. Under electron microscope, this multinucleated giant cell, which is an osteoclast, it exhibits unique morphological characteristics. Adjacent to the cell surface, its membrane has thrown itself into a myriad of deep folds that forms ruffled border. At the periphery of this border, the plasma membrane is opposed closely to the bone surface, and the adjacent cytoplasm is devoid of all types of cell organelles. However, this cytoplasm is enriched in actin, vinculin and talin type proteins, and these proteins are associated with the adhesion of the cell to the bone surface. तो अगर आप गौर से देखें तो आपको ये bone surface नज़र आ रही है, ये आपको एक depressed region नज़र आ रहा है which is the Howship's lacunae or the resorptive lacunae. This is your osteoclast. The part of the osteoclast that basically faces the resorbing surface of the bone throws itself into these numerous membrane folds, and they are called the ruffled border. ठीक है, इसको हम कहते हैं ruffled border. सारी resorptive activity इस ruffled border के against हो रही होती है, इस रफल बॉर्डर के अगेंस्ट हो रही होती है. ठीक है, बिल्कुल इस रफल बॉर्डर के अंदर जो ये वाला साइटोप्लाज्म है, ये जो आपको नज़र आ रहा है, इसके अंदर it is devoid of any organelles. However, इसके अंदर टैलिन विनक्यूलिन टाइप प्रोटीन्स होती हैं जो ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट को बोन सरफेस के साथ अटैचमेंट में हेल्प करती हैं. ये रीजन ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट का जो बेसिकली आपकी बोन के साथ अटैच कर रहा है ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट को, इसको हम कहते हैं सीलिंग जोन. ये सीलिंग जोन सिर्फ बोन के साथ ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट को अटैच ही नहीं करता, ये एक ऐसा एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट कर देता है, ये ऐसा लॉक लगा देता है जिसकी वजह से इस रीजन का, ये जो रफल्ड बॉर्डर रीजन है, ये वाला जो सारा रीजन है, इस रीजन का बाहर वाली एनवायरनमेंट के साथ कोई कम्युनिकेशन नहीं रहता. तो ये एक क्लोज्ड एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट कर देता है जिसकी वजह से ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट आसानी से एक क्लोज्ड एनवायरनमेंट में बोन के एक रीजन को रिजॉर्ब कर लेता है. दिस फिगर हेयर शोज द रफल्ड बॉर्डर अगेंस्ट द बोन. सो दिस इज योर बोन एंड ये नज़र आ रहा होगा आपको न्यूमरस इनफोल्डिंग्स ऑफ द मेम्ब्रेन. ये आपका सारा रफल्ड बॉर्डर है, सारी जो एक्टिविटी है वो रफल्ड बॉर्डर के अगेंस्ट होती है. सो दिस इज़ योर bone surface that has to resorb. It has thrown itself into a concavity called the house-shaped lacunae और the resorptive lacunae. ये आपका multinucleated giant cell है और ये इसकी वो membrane है जिसके अगेंस्ट सारी एक्टिविटी होनी है. और ये इसने अपने आप को, देखो न्यूमरस इनफोल्डिंग्स आपको नज़र आ रही हैं, उसको हम कहते हैं रफल बॉर्डर. यहाँ से अटैचमेंट हो रही होती है, ये साइड से अटैचमेंट हो रही होती है विद द हेल्प ऑफ द सीलिंग जोन. तो एक दरमियान में क्लोज्ड इन्वायरमेंट क्रिएट हो जाता है जिसका बाहर वाले रीजन से कोई कम्युनिकेशन नहीं होता. सो the sealing zone basically not only attaches the cell to the mineralized surface but also it seals the periphery of the ruffled border and creates an isolated microenvironment between the bone and the osteoclasts ruffled border. जैसे कि मैंने बताया कि जो सीलिंग जोन है ये सिर्फ एक अटैचमेंट ही प्रोवाइड नहीं करता बल्कि ये एक ऐसा कंपार्टमेंट क्रिएट कर देता है रफल्ड बॉर्डर और बोन के दरमियान में which has an isolated environment. ठीक है. And then जैसे कि मैं बार बार मेंशन कर चुकी हूँ, between the sealing zone and the bone there is a electron dense interfacial matrix layer present called the lamina lamitans. Then once the osteoclast has bound itself with the help of the sealing zone to the bone surface, ruffled border is facing the bone that has to resorb. अब क्या मैकेनिज़म्स हैं जो आपकी एडहेजन में और आगे बोन रिजॉर्प्शन में हेल्प करेंगे? ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट जो हैं, देयर आर सेवरल मैकेनिज़म्स दैट बेसिकली बाइंड योर ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट टू द सर्फेसेस. As I mentioned that there are certain proteins like vinculin, talin जो adhesion के अंदर help करती हैं. Among these there are other mechanisms like certain molecules that have high concentration of arginine, glycine, aspartic acid residues like the bone sialoproteins and the osteopontin. ये जो molecules हैं ये basically आपके osteoclast की adhesion को facilitate करते हैं and in other words they are basically facilitating the formation of a sealing zone. So there are many mechanisms that the osteoclast has. It has certain proteins जो adhesion में help करती हैं, then it has other molecules like bone sialoprotein, osteopontins are present on the bone surface जो sealing zone को help करती हैं in the attachment of the osteoclast to the bone surface. So here in this figure if you see, sorry I've lost the highlighter, you would be able to appreciate a sealing zone between the calcified. This is your calcified matrix basically और ये zoom करके इन्होंने sealing zone जो है वो दिखाया हुआ है between your osteoclast and the resorbing bone surface. तो अगर इस sealing zone में आप और से देखें तो there are fine striations and granularities in the sealing zone and these represent the concentration of contractile proteins within this region. ठीक है? So sealing zone has different mechanisms that help it in the attachment with the bone surface. उसके अलावा ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट के रफल्ड बॉर्डर के अंदर एक और भी इंपॉर्टेंट मैकेनिज्म होता है। जैसे कि मैंने बताया कि ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट का जो रफल्ड बॉर्डर है उसके जो बिल्कुल अंदर वाला साइटोप्लाज्म होता है उसके अंदर कोई खास मॉलिक्यूल्स ऑर्गेनेलीज नहीं होते, इसलिए हम उसको क्लियर जोन भी कहते हैं। उसके अंदर सिर्फ वेंकुलिन टैलेंट टाइप मॉलिक्यूल्स होते हैं जो अटैचमेंट में हेल्प करते हैं, और दूसरा उसके अंदर कुछ वेसिकल्स होते हैं जिनके अंदर एसिड फॉस्फेटेज और लाइजोजाइम्स वगैरह होते हैं। एक एडिशनल फीचर है ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट के रफल्ड बॉर्डर का, द रफल्ड बॉर्डर ऑफ द ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट ऑल्सो हैज अ पंप, a proton pump associated with its membrane. This pump basically pumps hydrogen into the sealed compartment. Which sealed compartment? Let me show you. The sealed compartment that the sealing zone has basically created. ठीक है, जब आपका ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट आके अटैच होता है with your bone surface, it creates or it seals the ruffled border against the mineralized, the resorbing bone surface, the mineralized bone or the future mineralized resorbing bone surface. So this compartment, this isolated compartment that has been created as a result of the sealing zone being bound to the bone surface, ये basically ये जो compartment है इसमें सारी आपकी बोन रिजॉर्प्शन होनी है, एंड देन द पार्ट ऑफ द ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट दैट इज directly opposed to this resorbing bone surface has thrown itself into these numerous membrane infoldings called the ruffled border. अब ये ruffled border जो है यहाँ पे हाइड्रोजन पंप लगा होता है और ये हाइड्रोजन पंप करता है इस कंपार्टमेंट के अंदर, और वो हाइड्रोजन आइंस क्या करेंगे, ऑब्वियसली वो आपकी बोन को रिजॉर्ब करने में हेल्प करेंगे। तो ये ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट का एक एडिशनल मैकेनिज्म है। दूसरा कि मैंने ये भी बताया था कि ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट जो है, ये जो रफल्ड बॉर्डर है इसके अंदर बिल्कुल जो डायरेक्टली इसके इनसाइड जो साइटोप्लाज्म होता है वो उसके अंदर कोई ख़ास, इस रीजन में कोई ख़ास ऑर्गेनेलीज नहीं होते, यहाँ पर सिर्फ वेसिकल्स होते हैं और कुछ लाइजोजाइम्स होती हैं और कुछ एंजाइम्स होते हैं जो बोन रिजॉर्प्शन में हेल्प करते हैं। So this is all about the osteoclast. The osteoclast has a ruffled border जिसके अगेंस्ट सारी resorption हो रही होती है. It attaches with the help of the sealing zone. ruffled border के अंदर सारा mechanism होता है जिससे bone resorption हो रही होती है, और वो क्या sequence of events होते हैं जिसमें resorption होती है। osteoclast का structure तो हमने पढ़ लिया, कैसे वो attach करते हैं, ये सारी बातें हमने कर ली। resorptive events का क्या sequence होता है? The first step is obviously the attachment of the osteoclast to the mineralized bone surface. The osteoclast comes and attaches to the mineralized bone surface where the bone has created the house-shaped lacunae. When the osteoclast attaches to the bone surface, obviously it attaches with the help of the sealing zone. That attachment creates a sealed acidic microenvironment through the action of the proton pumps within the ruffled border. These hydrogen ions or the protons that are pumped into this microenvironment, they demineralize the bone and they expose the organic matrix of the bone. Now once the organic matrix has been exposed, तो next step क्या होता है कि जो exposed matrix है उसको degrade करना होता है. The exposed matrix is degraded by the action of certain enzymes like acid phosphatases and cathepsin B. ये enzymes आपके osteoclast से ही आ रहे होते हैं. ये enzymes osteoclast से निकलते हैं और निकल कर आपके resorption of degradation करने शुरू कर देते हैं exposed matrix की, और जो organic matrix अब as a result of that degrade होता है, the ruffled border takes that degraded organic matrix back into its membrane. ठीक है, वापस osteoclast ruffled border के थ्रू वो degraded organic proteins वापस ले लेता है, and this process of taking these degraded organic products back is called endocytosis. एंडोसाइटोसिस का प्रोसेस मैं आपको बहुत डिटेल में एक्सप्लेन कर चुकी हूँ, अगर किसी को नहीं पता तो प्लीज़ गो गूगल इट and find out what endocytosis is. Otherwise the physiology में भी endocytosis पढ़ चुके होंगे. So by endocytosis, ruffled border takes the degraded organic products back into its cytoplasm, और वहाँ से ये जो degraded products होती हैं ये पूरा cytoplasm cross करती हैं in the vesicles, और इस प्रोसेस ऑफ क्रॉसिंग को कहते हैं ट्रांसलोकेशन. तो वो ट्रांसलोकेट करती हैं या ट्रांससाइटोसिस कहते हैं इस प्रोसेस को, कि वो पूरा साइटोप्लाज्म वेसिकल्स के अंदर जो डिग्रेडेड प्रोडक्ट्स पैक हुए हैं वो वापस आपके पूरा साइटोप्लाज्म ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट का क्रॉस करके और ऑपोजिट मेम्ब्रेन से बाहर निकल जाते हैं. सो दिस इज हाउ अ पर्टिकुलर रीजन ऑफ द बोन रिजॉर्ब्स. ठीक है, इस फिगर में सारी एक्टिविटी जो है वो समराइज हुई है. लेट मी एक्सप्लेन इट. अब जो बोन सरफेस रिजॉर्ब होनी है, दैट हैज थ्रोन इटसेल्फ इनटू दिस कैविटी विच इज कॉल्ड द हाउस शेप लैक्यूने. हाउस शेप लैक्यूने के अंदर आकर ये आपका ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट फिट होता है. ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट अटैचेस टू द रिजॉर्बिंग बोन सरफेस by the help of this sealing zone. The sealing zone is attaching and it is creating a micro environment between the ruffled border of the osteoclast and the surface of the bone that has to resorb. तो ये वाला जो बेसिकली कंपार्टमेंट है ये सारा आपका हो गया, सील हो गया. ठीक है, ये सारा आपका सील हो गया. अब नेक्स्ट स्टेप क्या है? वंस द अटैचमेंट हैज बिन डन, रफल्ड बॉर्डर के अगेंस्ट सब सारी एक्टिविटी होनी है. ठीक है, रफल्ड बॉर्डर में प्रोटॉन पंप लगा हुआ है, वो पंप करता है protons which are hydrogen ions basically into this compartment. These protons, they degrade the organic matrix of the bone and they expose the bone surface. Once the bone surface has been exposed as a result of the protons, excessive protons की excess की वजह से क्या होगा? Obviously acidic environment create हो जाएगा और वो acid आपकी bone के mineral को डिग्रेड करना शुरू कर देगा, डीमिनरलाइज करना शुरू कर देगा. वंस enough of that has been done, तो नेक्स्ट स्टेप क्या होगा कि यहाँ से इधर ही इसी साइटोप्लाज्म से आपके पास रफल बॉर्डर के जो साइटोप्लाज्म है यहाँ से एंजाइम्स निकलेंगे, लाइक लाइजोजाइम्स एंड एसिड फॉस्फेटेजेस. ये एंजाइम्स जो जो आपका एक्सपोज्ड बोन सरफेस है एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ द प्रोटॉन एक्शन, जो बोन सरफेस एक्सपोज हुआ है उसको लाइजोजाइम्स और एसिड फॉस्फेटेजेस आकर डिग्रेड करना शुरू कर देंगे बोन के ऑर्गेनिक मैट्रिक्स को. अब जब बोन का ऑर्गेनिक मैट्रिक्स डिग्रेड हो जाएगा तो जो डिग्रेडेड ऑर्गेनिक मैट्रिक्स है वो वापस एंडोसाइटोसिस से साइटोप्लाज्म ऑफ दी ऑस्टियोक्लास्ट के अंदर चला जाता है और वहाँ पर वो वेसिकल्स के अंदर ट्रांसपोर्ट होता है. सो दीज वेसिकल्स दैट यू कैन सी हेयर, दीज वेसिकल्स, व्हाट डू दे कंटेन? दीज वेसिकल्स कंटेन द डिग्रेडेड organic matrix of the bone. The degraded organic matrix of the bone crosses all of the cytoplasm of the osteoclast और ये opposite जो membrane है आपके osteoclast की ये वाली, इससे बाहर निकल जाते हैं. This process of taking up the degraded organic matrix from this compartment back into the cytoplasm of the osteoclast is called endocytosis. The process by which the packed vesicles cross the cytoplasm to go to the opposite plasma membrane of the osteoclast is called the transcytosis. Transcytosis का मतलब होता है crossing the cytoplasm. Transcytosis भी मैं डिटेल में बता चुकी हूँ. And once they reach the opposite membrane of the osteoclast, यहाँ से ये अपने आप को वापस exit कर लेते हैं. And that is how you get the resorption of the bone. That is how the resorption happens. So this was all about the osteoclast. क्या osteoclast की शक्ल है, osteoclast के क्या functions हैं, what are the parts of the osteoclast, how the osteoclast attaches to the bone surface, and what are the resorptive events that follow. This is it for today. I'm going to see you guys on Saturday at 11 o'clock for the question and answer session of this lecture. Thank you and Allah Hafiz.